Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. Do you struggle with social engagements during the holiday season? What boundaries do you set in place to preserve your mental well-being? If you'd like to learn how to navigate the challenges of seasonal shifts, stick around for today's episode. The following roundtable was facilitated by Global Autism Community moderator Hattie Angelys Fox, and it features Autistic Self-Advocates and new community moderators Bob Schmus and Adrian Sanchez. Among other things, they discuss transitioning from summer to winter, the challenges and joys of the holiday period, how to balance your social interactions, the importance of identifying and setting personal boundaries, sharing food and cultural traditions to enhance community bonds, preparing for travel during the busy holiday period, and strategies to maintain mental well-being throughout seasonal changes. In this episode, discover what's possible when every change brings a new opportunity. And now I present you the Global Autism Community.
Our topic has really been seasonal changes and seasonal changes into the holiday season. And I love that today all the moderators are here, save one who is traveling. But, this is the first roundtable where both Adrian and Bob are moderators with me. And I absolutely love that. I love having their perspectives, their voices added to the back end of the community, as well as their perspectives shining the way they are inside the community. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking on this effort and for all the things you've been doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure thing.
So we'll go around and introduce ourselves and our connection to the community and maybe anything we'd like to share. I'm Hattie Angelys. I go by Hattie or Angelys, or most combinations of the two. I am a late diagnosed autistic cisgendered female. I'm a mother of two. I am married. I homeschool both of my children. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, an early childhood special educator, and regular educator. And I have been connected, despite my own lifeline, I've been connected to the community through service since about 1998 and worked in a variety of spaces. And I am one of the moderators here in the Global Autism Project community space.
Hello, my name is Adrian, and I am an autism spectrum navigator. I'm an IT specialist, and I'm currently experiencing the world with other volunteers who are working to change the world with autism, and I'm learning a bunch of new ways to change social status as well.
My name is Robert Schmus. Call me either Robert or Bob, either one. I'm a autism self-advocate. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker in the mental health field. I do my advocacy work for the use of public speaking engagements, as well as writing articles, and the topics I focus on include mental health, education, healthcare, relationships, as well as transitioning into adulthood. I love to paint. I love music, history, travel, culture, and meeting people from around the world.
I love it. So like I said earlier, we kind of combined this very large topic of seasonal changes and the holiday season. For the three of us, we are all in the Northern Hemisphere. And so we've been transitioning from summer through fall and into winter. And we kind of started with that understanding of, seasonal patterns and that mammals in nature slow themselves down. And so I guess, Adrian, if you're up to it, in what ways do you find yourself embracing the change from summer to fall into winter, that slowing down?
I find it to be a positive change. And even though it does have its ups and downs, there's still some good positivity in it to actually enjoy. And I feel like the best way to get through it is to dive back into nostalgia when we all used to enjoy this, when we had less responsibilities because our parents were pretty much doing everything for us. Now we're in together. doing everything as adults, especially when it comes to shopping, traveling, navigating harsh weather conditions. And right now, even though it is a bit of a downfall, now that we're adults now, there is some good things to be taken out of it, because by the end, if we just keep up with the seasonal traditions, then that will help us to get some good positivity back, especially when we think back to childhood nostalgia.
I love that idea of bringing nostalgia, right? While school may start in the fall, there's often a whole bunch of looking forward to seeing your friends and the activities and things like that that come with it. And I think that that is a great way to almost reward yourself or mentally embrace that transition. So that's such a great keynote little clip right there. Bob, do you have any ways in which you find this transition that you support yourself, that you embrace the slowdown that is from summer to winter?
For me, when it comes to this from summer to winter, I just take one day at a time with it. Mostly because I like keeping myself busy, especially during like for instance in fall. Like the fall, there's a lot going on, so that keeping me stimulated for that has been helpful.
Okay, okay. And while there are good things, Adrian did point out it has its ups and downs. It can be very challenging for many people to live through that shift, right? Where for those of us in Northern Hemisphere, we're moving away from bright and long days. The quality of sunlight is actually different. We're less likely to be spending time outdoors. So we have a decrease in vitamin D, which helps with our moods and a whole bunch of other things. And so, are there any specific challenges that you experience that you would want to share about? And that's okay if you don't. So I do. I have those challenges. I love being outdoors. I love being in nature, and it's very easy for me to do in the summer and in the spring. I don't have to really think about getting outside. I have to be very mindful of it as the seasons shift. I have to be very intentional about it. And without going outside enough, I don't feel that I ground as easily as I should. Also, the shorter days means I'm using a lot more artificial light, and I find that that can make me very irritable. It's easier for me to stay very balanced in natural light. It's almost like the day is long enough for me to expend my energy and do all of my things. But on these, when it's dark by 5 o'clock, I feel like it's time for my brain to be slowing down. And I personally want to slow down, but I still have so much to do. I've got to cook that dinner and I've got to do the next thing or whatever. So I find those things really challenging. And so I'm very intentional getting out. And anything you guys experience in the seasonal shift that you find hard?
I guess, for me, it would have to be just the temperature dropping, because I'm someone, I work out a lot, I run a lot. And so
Nice.
every time, thanks, every time I have like a free time, I would go outside and run. Just something that keeps me active, keeps me healthy. And just when it gets colder outside, it's hard to do that. Luckily, I have a gym in my apartment complex I use, but I'm not too much fan of the cold. Like, I can stand the heat, even blistering heat. It's the cold I can't stand. And also another thing is like the days getting shorter. That's another thing. I agree. That's why I like during the fall how there's so many things going on. It keeps me stimulated and keeps my mind off that.
Yeah, that stimulation in the fall definitely is helpful for me as well. I love all the harvest festivals and the fall festivals and Halloween and I'm into history, so there's some local historical societies that I get that do some cool stuff around me, and that does help me to transition to that slowerness. It's almost as if I'm not filling my space, but the seasons, the traditions, the nostalgia are filling some of that space for me. So that helps a bit. Adrian, did you want to add anything before we move forward to the next?
Yes, I would say some disadvantages for me is feeling very uncomfortable and sweating during the normal warm months, which is like spring and summer. And during spring, it's very irritable when a lot of pollen just keeps flying around, and I just get a lot of allergies to that, and as well as it just makes a lot of things more messy, especially for my car. During summer, I enjoy it as long as there's a place to go refresh for some swimming, as well as staying indoors as much. I know artificial light is not as healthy as indoors, but if I'm got a lot of good cold water, then I'd be happy to just lay out in the sun and just dry off with some natural heat. During the colder months, however, is a lot more refreshing. I'm encouraged a lot more to just go do some walking around, especially with my dog, and just get a good breeze of fresh air. And I'm already prepared with plenty of winter gear for that. And as far as I know, I just have a lot more enjoyable memories with the cold weather, especially with the seasonal times. I enjoy Halloween, especially when people are giving out free treats, even if you're not young enough to go trick or treating. And then during the winter holidays around December is a lot more enjoyable when people have a lot more of a positive attitude. You hear people singing and you revert back to watching those classic Christmas specials you used to watch. And I'm sure we all have nostalgic memories of those. And then afterwards, everything just starts over, and I'm prepared to make a fresh start for the next year. So, as far as I can say, I'm very much in tune with just looking for good, positive memories during the colder months. But I feel like I'm just trying to survive during the warmer, basically just because of the sweat details.
I overheat also. I'm very prone to overheating. So I, unlike Bob, although my husband is like you, Bob, it could be as hot as Hades and he'd be fine. I am not one who enjoys the heat. I would prefer cold and wool clothing, nice soft merino wool, um, to the heat. But I definitely do enjoy being outside and the way in which summer and spring call to me. And I love that you brought up the allergens too, because I struggle with that. And I'm somebody that has a global inflammation due to allergens, and I have spring and fall allergies. So I have to monitor that, right? As the season is changing and the light is changing. I also have to be very aware that my body is inflamed. Whether I feel or look puffy or not, my body is responding with a high histamine response. And my doctor and I work really closely on managing it, but it can cause other challenges. So I love that you brought those up. Now, some people struggle, we've kind of touched on this. Some of us prefer really cold weather. Some of us prefer really warm weather. Some people are really, really attuned to moderate weather, and it's the extremes that they find hard. And in my practice, working with children and teens and young adults, and even very young children, one of the one thing that caregivers will bring to me is that they feel that the person that they're charged with the safety and care of is not wearing weather appropriate clothing. And for some people, it can be an insistence on sameness. There's preferred outfits, and they don't want to move away from that. But for other people, it can be, like you said, really preferring it being warm and needing to be super toasty all the time, or other people could be really prefer being cold. But do either of you have any challenges around shifting your wardrobes? Is there textures or things that are impacted by the seasonal change that maybe you struggle with?
Well, I know for me, like sometimes, like in the past, like having a big coat was kind of something that was kind of didn't feel like it felt like it was restraining me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not that way now, but back in the past it was.
Do you think there was something that helped you overcome it, or it just changed over time?
Honestly, I think it just changed over time.
Okay. I definitely, as a young adult, a young child, and even into my teen years, I felt like I was always being forced into too much clothing. Like I said, I overheat really easily. And so in people's efforts to keep me safe, they would put it on so many layers that I would literally feel as though I couldn't move. Not only just the restriction and restraint of it, but the temperature, my core temperature was way too high. And I really felt unsafe inside of that kind of thing. So as an adult, I love the autonomy of being able to wear what feels good for me. Adrian, do you have any sensitivities around clothing, and especially moving from summer clothing into winter clothing?
My sense of preference for clothing does change, and it really depends on where I am. But I do enjoy wearing layers of clothing because I just think that it looks very much stylish than the warm weather clothes that I would be wearing, because it's basically just one layer of clothing and that makes me look very plain. And I really much love a lot of the and clothing that I'm wearing to keep my head warm, and that gives me a reason to actually wear a hat as well as wearing a stylish beanie that has a brim on the front that works in a way of just keeping the sun out as well. But as far as today, it's very great to just be wearing some winter clothing and being able to change it out. And I guess the only frustrating part that I can say about that is just having to hang it up somewhere whenever I'm going into a guest home and hoping that it doesn't get lost somewhere. And one reason that I love wearing this clothing is because it just gives me a reason to just go out and just enjoy the snow. I feel like I'm like one of the very few people that actually enjoys snow, as long as, I'm not driving through it and having to scrape it off my car.
Yeah, beanies are always good.
Mm-hmm. I love that you appreciate the visual aesthetic, right? We often talk about our sensory systems and we talk about maybe our tactile system or our auditory system, but I think there's a visual aesthetic to things too. And knowing that you enjoy that, right? So it can also be a motivator to say, oh, wow, I'm going to wear clothes that I like looking at myself in, or I emotionally feel better in. So I love those things for you. Bob, is there anything you wanted to add relating to how clothing can impact the changes?
Well, definitely. I think since weather can be sporadic at times, like, at first you might come in and wear like some big jacket thinking it's going to be cold like the day before, but then it's not. And also, so that's one thing. Another thing is, it can really help you feel like you blend in with the weather. Like, for instance, I wear a Jeff cap that I got during my trip to Ireland one year, and I wear it a lot during the wintertime, and it helps me feel like blended into the season.
I love that.
Hello, Rachel here. Would you like to share your own perspectives by participating in roundtables like this one? Join our online Global Autism Community, a safe and judgment-free space where all kinds of people connected to autism regularly discuss important topics. For example, we just had another roundtable about the new year and new routines. And as each month approaches, we vote on which theme to discuss next. We'd love to see you over at community.globalautismproject.org. And let us know what you think about this episode. And now, back to the roundtable.
We kind of talked about this a little bit, but the next topic that we discussed inside of the Global Autism Project community space was all of the holidays, right? There is, between the end of August and the end of December, a ton of holidays from all the different faiths. Matter of fact, Diwali and Halloween fell on the same day this year, which is Diwali is the Hindi festival of lights. We also have many of the Jewish holidays in September, although this is the leap year for the Judaic calendar. So there's actually a 13th month, meaning that they fell in October this year. We have a number of religious holidays. We have a number of secular holidays from Veterans Day on, Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. And then we move into the December holiday run, and that is full as well from cultural things like Sinterklaas, which is towards the beginning of December and celebrated by some of the Norse countries. And I live here in New York. I actually have friends who celebrate all of these different festivals. So for me, it's super busy, but it's really fun because I get to experience all of these different cultures, and I feel honored to be invited on the inside of my friends and families and ways of celebrating and their touches of nostalgia and their things. Sometimes there's a food that's more traditional to something, but a lot of times people will choose to cook the thing that reminded them of their own childhood. So for my family, Thanksgiving, I always make like a homemade macaroni and cheese, and I literally make the cheese sauce from scratch, and something my mom did. And I cooked the night before, again, something my mom did, so that Thanksgiving Day itself was kind of slower and easier. And we bring forward those pieces of our own childhood forward, or we get to share some of our favorite pieces of our childhood with those people that we love most. So with all of the holidays and things that are going on, what are some things that you really look forward to?
I guess for me, it would be like the different celebrations that go across. Like for me, the holidays are best when we do experiences. And for me, that includes like going to a festival. I love festivals around the holidays. So that I've been able to go to a couple of them, which have been, especially Christmas markets. I love them. And also just spending time with family and friends, like watching certain Christmas specials and making cookies and doing all those things. It's just, that's what makes the holidays great for me. Being with those who you love and just doing those things.
I love that. What about for you, Adrian?
For me, during the holidays, I feel like it's very important to keep up with tradition. And in my case, I feel like it's very great to celebrate the first 25 days of Advent up until Christmas. And during those times, I just try to keep things very positive for me, usually involving drinking eggnog and watching some Rankin Bass shorts with the stop motion figures and stuff like that. And just putting up some laser lights, spending time with family. And one of the foods that I really get to enjoy as part of my Latin American heritage is tamales, which are pretty much like burritos, but wrapped up in some corn shells that are also wrapped up in a hard shell, and they're rolled up very accurately and pretty much eaten very hot temperature. And it's very much satisfactory with being shared among other Latin American families, whether it's Puerto Rican, Mexican, Colombian, you name it. Oh, what were you saying, Bob?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was about to say I love tamales.
Ew, you did.
Yep.
What is your heritage, Adrian?
I'm half Puerto Rican and half Mexican.
Ah, that's where the tamales come from, because you know what I love is pasteles. So the Puerto Rican culture, we have something very similar to tamales, but it is not the same. They taste very different. I love tamales. I love Mexican tamales. There's something very special about them. But I do not know how to make pasteles, but the Colombian woman who runs a Spanish mercado near me, she actually made me chicken pasteles. So I have about 15 in the freezer.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
Puerto Rican counterpart.
Yep.
That is so awesome.
And Vicky has actually promised to make them for me anytime I want, so I can order them a dozen at a time. But it's something we don't get for only we get them for our birthdays and for Christmas. So it's very special to have that food.
Yeah, very festive. Glad my father introduced me to those.
So last month we talked about the ebb and flow of socialization, right? And how sometimes we might intentionally, not last month, I'm sorry, 2 months ago, intentionally expand our social aspects. But there are a lot of social demands in the holiday run. Pretty much for me, it kicks off with the Judaic holidays. So from Jewish New Year through Chinese New Year, there's something constantly going on in my world. And I can find that taxing. How do you gentlemen feel about the number of social engagements that hit your calendar? Too many, not enough, more or less?
I think it's starting to become more virtual than it is in person. But I'm so glad that I get to work in a work environment where there are often Christmas parties that involve potlucks, as well as other people bringing in some desserts. And it's the wonderful time to be sharing with those kinds of activities, as well as representing something from your end, a kind of food that represents your heritage.
I love that.
I'm sharing.
Yeah. How about you, Bob? Does it feel overwhelming, or it feels just right, or it feels like you wish there was more and it lasted longer?
Honestly, I wish there was more and it lasted longer. Because I just love like I said before, the experiences are something I love to take part in.
I love that. So I was not a part of the Global Autism Project when the community itself talked about travel, but a lot of the holidays will occasion travel. And that is not necessarily easy for everybody. So is there anything that you gentlemen would like to offer or talk about relating to travel around the holidays? Maybe just tips that help you travel easier if you don't travel for that huge festival run, or ways in which you prepare yourself for it so it doesn't feel so overwhelming, or anything?
Well, I guess the best thing I can say is just make sure you keep yourself kind of prepared. For example, like sometimes when I drive too far, it gets me anxious. So what helps me is just really just kind of like keeping myself at a cool, calm base before I go on the travel. Because I know, like, once I get there, everything will be fine.
That makes a lot of sense. Adrian?
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's very good and less stressful if you could plan trips ahead to look at some good ticket prices, as well as keeping an itinerary in a good special place. And during these times, it's easier to just keep the files on your phone and just be able to scan your tickets without having to go through the extra process of just printing it as well. And I understand that a lot of travel can be very stressful and expensive for a lot of people. And it's very important to be planning ahead, as well as engaging with a lot of conversations with relatives ahead of time to know whether or not they're free. And from that, you'll also be able to plan ahead to just get some trips from your place to the airports at ease. And once that's all planned ahead, then everything will go according to schedule.
I love that. I love both of those. Rob talking about car travel, and you talking about more commuter travel, plane travel. I think that I don't know what I would do if I was assigned male at birth. I'm going to be honest. I love that I have purses, and that's seen as completely normative to carry a bag with me at all times. I'm a notorious overpacker, so I tend to get anxious in a lot of spaces, and always having the things I need, being prepared, right? Whether it's having some fidgets or a little bit of a sweet in my bag to bring up my blood sugar, or it's having my gaming system. I keep my Switch sometimes on me. When I'm traveling through airports and things like that, I learned with my son, who has different needs than I do, but the TSA actually offers a program called TSA Cares. And it's actually, you can call once your flights are booked and you let them know when you're traveling, and they will actually issue a TSA agent to support you getting through the gate checks, and you let them know what you need. So my anxiety around especially masses and crowds of people climbs too high. And so you don't have to disclose which disability you have. You just do have to disclose that you do have a disability, and then you let them know what kind of support you need. And so I have a TSA agent that meets me on the, drop-off side of the gates, and literally walks me straight through, helps me to move my things, helps me to maintain visuals on all of my items. And sometimes they'll even accommodate getting me to the gate, especially like in some of the larger airports, but that's not required. That's something you do through your carrier if you need that kind of support. So taking advantage of support programs is 100% for me a strategy. Also identifying foods that feel good. So were I to be someplace where I wanted to access a festive food and I didn't think I could, maybe planning ahead for that. So those kinds of things I think I would add to what you guys already said. Adrian, it looks like you want to say something.
No, I was just in astonishment, because that's very good that people would go through all that trouble to give people on the autism spectrum those kinds of aids and helpful things. I've also heard that there are some stimulus rooms they have at the airport for people with those kinds of abilities. I would love to visit those someday.
So some of the larger airports are building the sensory rooms, spaces for people to move into. And it's not just on the autism spectrum. So whatever it is that an individual traveler needs in terms of passing through the security screening process. So if you're deaf, hard of hearing, you have mobility challenges, if you're on the spectrum, there's a whole host of reasons. And again, you don't have to disclose what your disability is, just that you have one. And then the TSA agents will arrange to meet with you. Oftentimes, my TSA agent will call me either the night before and let me know what their number is so that I can reach them. They'll use the phone at the airport, or they will say that this is their private phone and I should call them once I get out of the vehicle, and they'll come find me and help me get through. So it's been an amazing program. Like I said, I learned about it with my son, who has differential needs. He's got some medical fragility that's how we learned about the program, but it is available for any individual with disability. So I thought I could throw that out there.
That's amazing about that TSA program.
Yeah, it's a really great program. You can online book. So if that's your preference, if you prefer to do things like that, I always call in, and they usually like 72 hours advance notice. So that's like the latest you could call in. But honestly, if you're struggling and you're in the airport and the struggle is getting through security, going up to any TSA agent, going up to the pre-check space and like saying, can you please just get me a TSA agent? And just letting them know that, like, listen, I did not contact CARES, but I am a CARES traveler and I need help. And it's a federal program, so they will help you.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because during times of overstimulation, you're going to need that handout, especially in crowded places.
And I just let them know, like, it's my anxiety that's debilitating. Like, regardless, as a high masking female, as somebody who, has a professional job, there's so many stigmas around autistics and autism spectrum diagnoses. I don't even try to explain. Really, I'm just like, I have really bad anxiety in this space, and like I need help, and my anxiety is debilitating at this point. Like, I'm not able to do this on my own. I need assistance. And like, that's it. That's all I've ever had to really say. So we talked about a whole bunch of things with our community and offered them lots of spaces around mental health support. And that's definitely important, right? You can over socialize and maybe forget to meet other needs. We can over exert ourselves. While there's so much fun and so many enjoyable things going on, we're still also working and engaging with our adult responsibilities and such like that. So I'd like to kind of shift us to some ideas around supporting our own mental health, especially as the season turns, but also through the very busyness and even post it, right? So we go into the new year super excited, et cetera, and so forth. And then we hit midwinter, and there's often a drop of endorphins, of socialization, and things like that. So as we're moving through this time, what things are you doing for your mental health?
Well, for me, I honestly, when it comes to this, I just have to take one thing at a time. Now, I know it's like easier said than done, but I just really have to be honest with myself. Hey, I'm not feeling that good right now. And to kind of talk to myself, okay, what's my next step to really get to be in a better place? First of all, just knowing that I'm not in that good spot and not ignoring it. That's the first step. Second step is to, know what my coping skills are. Like, know that, hey, I need to do this type of technique to help me feel better, or I need to do this that can help me feel better. Those are things that have been really been helpful for me.
I love that. So really first identifying that there is a struggle. And I find that requires, for me, I have to slow down. I don't perceive the overwhelm necessarily until it's far too big, or I've gotten a break from it and I can kind of check in with myself. I don't do that well when I'm in a stimulating space. And then identifying with what it is, labeling it, and then checking in with myself and talking myself through those coping skills. I love that because that's about what I do too. I also have a couple of people in my world who are sort of my trusted people. My husband, my best friends are two of them. I have a small community of homeschooling moms that I'm very close with, and I listen to feedback from them. When I start hearing them say, "Hey, are you okay?" Or, more than like a norm of like, "Hi, you okay?" Like if that tone shifts, I'm like, "Ooh, what are you seeing?" And I'll ask them because I trust their perspective. I trust that they know me well. I share with them. I have a close connection with them. And so if any one of those people are saying to me things in a different tone, I kind of ask them what they're seeing, and I'll use that to reflect as well. Adrian, do you have any strategies that seem to help your mental health as we go through all of these things?
Yeah. During times of high stress and trying to navigate my way through a lot of difficult times, I feel like the best thing to do is to know where I would want to be back when I was younger. And back when I was younger, I always imagined that I would always have things figured out and be able to have a lot of privileges and being able to know the right answer. And so far, I've been able to live up to that kind of expectation at this age. And during this time, I feel like I got a full advantage with a lot of the privileges I have. And the main responsibility we have as adults is to show the younger generation how they can thrive in this kind of world. And the best thing to do is to just not lose innocence. It doesn't have to all be bleak because, like I said before, there are going to be ups and downs. But it's also important to memorize the things that made us happy back when we were in a younger generation, just learning things and didn't have that capability. So best kind of coping strategy I have is to just keep moving forward with happy thoughts. And even though adult responsibilities, there's still time in between to actually think freely, whether it's a hobby or watching a good show, a good movie, listening to music. That's very good in trying to move forward and just not think the negative state.
I love how you are finding balance. I hear from you lots of acknowledgement of where the challenges are, or the demands are, or the responsibilities are. But to each of those challenges and or demands or responsibilities, I'm hearing, yes, there's a demand, but find your freedom. Or yes, there's a challenge, but find your happiness. Or yes, there's a responsibility, but also hold your sense of wonder and awe at the world. And I love that. I love that you have found a good balance for yourself. And I love that you see it as valuable and important to share that and to share that with the next generation, because that's really where the answers are found oftentimes. It's knowing ourselves, like Bob said, and accepting ourselves in the state that we're in. It's deploying strategies that have helped us from before, and it's seeking balance, seeking to even those scales out. So I love that. We are just about out of time. We have about 13 more minutes. And so I figured, since this has been a really cool roundtable of moderators, I would ask you guys, and I'm sorry to surprise you in this way, so if it's too unexpected or too sudden, feel free to take a little bit of time. But we took on a huge topic, right? This seasonal shift into the holidays and then dealing with the holidays. If you had one thing you wanted to share that maybe we didn't talk about today, what would it be? I think boundaries for me are the one thing I'd like to share. You don't have to say yes to everything. You have to say yes to what's right for you. I have children. Not all of us do, but there are definitely community members who do. It is okay to say what is okay inside your house and what isn't. What is okay for your family and what isn't. And if somebody doesn't respect that, it is okay to let that gift go. It's not honoring yourself. It's not honoring your vision for your children. It's not honoring anything to hold something. You can accept something graciously and be like, oh my gosh, thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for wanting to bless us with this object, item, whatever. But it's also okay to say, and it doesn't suit me when you get home, and pass it to somebody who it would bring joy to. Because someone who loves me isn't going to want me to be experiencing discomfort. So it's okay to say, I can't come till XYZ time because you need to go home and settle your sensory system first. It's okay to say, I have to leave by XYZ time because you need to get enough sleep in order to continue. So I want to kind of emphasize that boundaries are okay, whatever those boundaries look like. I think the hard part is learning to say it in a way that feels safe for other people. And one of the things that I've been trying to work with, although less successful than I would like, is thank you so much for this invitation. And I love that you want to share this time with me. I'll be able to come at this time. If they're like, oh, but it starts at 4. Yes. And in the nature of my life and me wanting to bring the best of myself to it, I'll be able to be there by 7. If that's too late for you, I understand. However, that's the earliest I'd be able to get there. Instead of accepting the pressure that I have to do it on somebody else's timeline. Because I have a family of 4 and a household of 5, and there is constant things going on. And so I've needed to kind of navigate that. So I open it to you, gentlemen. Is there something, either whether you want to build off of boundaries or something that we didn't touch on at all, that you're like, you know what, this is the thing I wish people would take away from today?
I would have to piggyback off of you, Angelys, just that knowing what our boundaries are and not being afraid to just say, hey, you know what, I can do this, but I can do this at like a certain way because it's better for me. Just knowing what my boundaries are, because boundaries are necessary. They are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think many a relationship or many a connection or many a social experience is damaged by someone not knowing their boundaries or not expressing their boundaries, or thinking that releasing their boundaries is a version of care. If someone loves me, if someone cares about me, if someone genuinely feels positive things for me as a human and accepts my humanity, then my boundaries aren't seen as criticisms or critiques or harmful. They're seen as the best way to interact with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, since we're kind of all in that space, then has there been a boundary that you have found a successful way of navigating relating to seasons and holidays and socialization and expending lots of energy? Or has there been a boundary that's been really hard and maybe you want to workshop, if you're comfortable, either of you, on how we might share with our community when they get the podcast on how they might navigate it?
I think, the first thing to do is just really talking about it as the first step. Like what we're doing right now, just really talking about it and knowing like, hey, we have boundaries and sometimes it can be hard, but just knowing what our boundaries are, like that's the first step.
Yeah, starting to figure out what feels good, right? Like I mean, I've got a client on my caseload who absolutely does not like to stay up past 11 p.m. Period, point blank, end of story. He is uninterested in anything that happens past 11 p.m. And we've had to work with extended family members about understanding, like, he's setting this limit. This is his need, and he's looking out for his own best interest. He doesn't do well when he gets less sleep than he would get if he's not in his bed by 11. Like, this isn't disrespectful of your family's culture. This isn't disrespectful of your life. When I was a little kid, I went to midnight mass, and it was really hard for me, actually. I loved it. I think there was something beautiful about being in the church at midnight and bringing in the, Christmas Eve to Christmas Day. Hispanics, or at least from my experience, we celebrate Christmas Eve much more than we celebrate Christmas Day. So there was something sort of magical about moving from my religious holiday into the secular holiday of like Christmas Day and gift giving. But it was really hard, and this learner really can't handle it. It takes him a lot to get back on schedule if he doesn't get that kind of sleep. And so helping him to get his needs heard by extended family members and helping his family and his parents to be able to say that with some confidence that it wasn't to harm anyone, that this is him, and this is loving him the way he is. I find that really important. Adrian, has there been anything that you've needed to share with people around you? Maybe around, anything from sensory experiences or temporal experiences or needs for quiet or needs for nature or kind of any of the things that maybe you had to say, like, no, this is a need of mine. This is a boundary. I will be doing this thing, and I invite you to share it, or I need a space for it. I just need space to accommodate it.
Yeah. Well, as for boundaries, I would say that's a very good way to emphasize a sense of morality, especially with the kind of holidays that we celebrate that are emphasized with our beliefs. Now, people don't respect that, then it's important to give a good explanation, how it makes you feel when it's related to that. Give a good POV shot so they'll be able to see it better. And when people who don't have those kinds of boundaries and don't emphasize them, then they either feel like they should always agree with the person, or they just don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. But it's okay because we're all different, and it's very important that we just explain to why these kinds of meanings really mean a lot to us. And over time, people will understand. And one thing about boundaries is that it emphasizes how we're all different and we need to be respected. And with all the holidays that are coexisting, it's a way of representing how we're all different and all of our beliefs need to be respected if we're all in this together.
I love that. I love that. And as I've gotten older, for me, the people who didn't choose to accept my boundaries have self-weeded from my life. And my life becomes increasingly more full of people who want to love me and care for me and be in my space the way that would be meaningful to me. And they are people who are increasingly ones who want to make sure that they let me know so that I can do the same thing for them. Whether it's sharing their culture with me, or it's sharing their traditions with me, or it's sharing their nostalgia with me, or inviting me to their festival, or spending time in nature with me, because that's also a value of theirs. I increasingly have people in my world who do those things for me. And so I think that that's part of healthy boundaries are part of how we construct the world we want to live in. And I think that's the key to surviving all of this.
That's good. I mean, during this time of year, I really thrive on some social gatherings with the holidays that are celebrated. And if there are those, then there are people who need to emphasize their beliefs, and it's a perfect time to share and all that. Whether it be Christmas,
You get to learn so
Kwanzaa.
much.
Yeah.
So much. Things that I didn't know, things that that's how I had Mexican tamales. Mexican traditions are not part of my heritage, but I've gotten to experience them because I have a very good friend who is Mexican and Costa Rican. I've also got to have Mexican hot chocolate, which is amazing.
Ooh, right with the cinnamon in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the Nestle Abuelita kind.
That's what I have Abuelita discos in my house right now.
Yeah.
Rob, if you ever see them, I highly recommend, if you like hot chocolate, the Abuelita discs, it's a solid brick of chocolate. You throw it in a pan with some milk of your choice and melt it. You can add a little sprinkle of extra cinnamon. Chef's kiss. It's fantastic.
Oh, I gotta try it.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a round candy bar. So you don't eat it, you melt it.
Okay.
Bob, is there anything you want to add as our closing notes? Because we are just about out of time.
Well, I just want to say it's great speaking with you, Adrian, Angelys. It's been an honor. Just want to say happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you. And thank you so
holiday.
much for sharing this space, this time. Thank you both so much for becoming moderators. Like I said, I am so grateful for your energy, for your voices, for your perspectives. It's just the community continues to become a more special place to me over time. And you guys are so much a part of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. Are you a self-advocate willing to share your story and educate others? Or a professional seeking to hear directly from autistic voices and improve your practice? Or maybe you're a family member hoping to support and empower your loved one. Whatever your connection to autism is, we'd love to hear your takeaways from this episode in our online Global Autism Community, where hundreds of people from all over the world come together to support each other and know that they're not alone. Join us today at community.globalautismproject.org. Let's work together to transform how the world relates to autism. Thanks for listening. Take care.